show. We are live on Facebook. We got Laulauhead in the house right off the bat. I got our boy Shane. But we're talking Terry Agno. Shout out to his wife Terry. She's in the house literally. So she's going to keep us up to date because for a year we've been doing this now. Well, Shane, he's a hard guy. He's a very hardworking guy. You probably see him on the road. So he's not an easy guy for me to pin down. But starting this journey with me a year ago when we started doing our webcasts on here, our live streaming. Sorry, I'm checking my audio streams now. When we started doing these live streams like a year ago, it was kind of like the pandemic had put us in this weird spot where we wanted to still be productive, and for you and for other fans like me as well, we wanted to be able to keep talking about our team and be able to have discussion and dialogue. And we've done some crazy stuff this past year. I mean, just thinking of all the people that we've talked to on the show. But Shane, welcome, and just talk about life as Laulauhead and how you've been recently.
Life as Laulauhead. I guess we all been, how they say, just same old, just trying to get through everyday life. There's been some family health issues that I've been dealing with, which has been stressful in addition to all our pandemic issues and social justice issues just dealing with life in general. It's not an easy task. Some days are definitely better than others, but thanks to you, we always have your enjoyable videos and all your ventures out there that I totally love watching. You've had quite a few emotional days too with your LAFC opening. I know you rest in peace to your friend Mo. Yeah.
Mahalo. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, very emotional.
And your to the SoFi, I was like, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
This guy rubbing it in. I was like, oh, this guy rubbing it in already. So yeah.
And
then even your Super Bowl trip, all these things. It's very enjoyable, man. Thank you, mahalo for all your work and all. I know it's not easy to do what you're doing, but it's very enjoyable. I know that.
Absolutely.
And I just want to let you know it's very enjoyable to a lot of us sports fans too out there, my man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. I mean, I like I said, when I first started this, it's for us, right? It's for us fans. Like, I want to do something just for us because we would enjoy. And thank you. I appreciate that because that's the seal of approval that I want. I don't really. This is more for the stuff that we do, the kind of questions, the burning questions that I've always wanted to ask. And in this past year, obviously having Colt, which has been, a huge interview. And shout out to Colt. He liked our post this morning, so maybe he's watching right now. Colt Brennan out there, and we, he was an amazing interview, and there are things I've wanted to ask him and talk to him about for years. So I hope that other fans realize, this has been amazing from myself as the host, and the work that I put into it has been strenuous, but I think the fruits of the labor have been ripe and have definitely changed me as a fan in different ways. And stretched me in ways that I think will help me in the future, because I think this pandemic really helped to bring a lot of us even more together. I know we are so used to seeing each other in person, and that's why it's hard sometimes because, this program that binds the two of us together. Of course, we're two local boys from Hawaii, but we probably, I don't know, maybe we would have ran into each other. It's funny because our common friend, your classmate, Lori Lay, I stayed with her in Tampa, actually, and she's like, isn't it weird that you met me before Shane, the Laulauhead? She's like, everybody knows him, though. I was like, I know it is weird how I met you in Florida. And it's funny because now that she's been one of those UH football people, literally, of all things, I went to watch Florida, right? Hawaii play in the swamp in Gainesville against Tim Tebow and Urban Meyer. Um, Shockingly, I don't want to spoil it for you if you look up the score, but we lost to Florida. I know. Um, no, but in the being in that stadium and being with people that don't go to games at home, maybe, or don't go to West Coast games, that is our connection. Is maybe when on the East Coast. But anyways, Lori Lay, who I met in Florida, I met her at a bar. She was with her husband. I was with my friends, and we got to hang out before the game. And I've been friends with her ever since. That was 2008, and I stayed with her in Tampa, where she lives, while I was at the Super Bowl. So you just never know. And she was classmates, Kalani Falcons, representing in the house.
Yeah.
So she was very proud of being Shane's classmate, and she was like, but it's so weird that you would know me before Shane, of all people. I was like, I know. I was like, believe me, it took me a while, but I think I finally got to talk to you was in 2012 at the USC game.
USC.
And that is a good segue into talking about this year. Hawaii plays UCLA. Of course, Hawaii sports fans will be there again. I just put up a half tour, of course, in California, and just the theme has been the pandemic and getting into games. Vaccination cards, I talked about this last week. Could there be a sports vaccine or a sports passport, maybe a COVID passport for sports? And yes, the answer is yes. We've already seen the Bills do that, and right now, if you want to go to a Laker game or a Clipper game or a Warriors game, a lot of events in California are requiring you to have vaccination or take the test. The fact is, the only way that they can sell all of their seats in the stadiums or in the arenas is to show proof of vaccination. Really, that's the only way they're going to be able to, and that means maximizing revenue, right? That's just not crowding people into space and having all this noise, which is obviously what every home team wants, is that advantage. But more importantly, the owners, the ADs, the university presidents, they want to make their money. So that's just one thing I'm just saying. Vaccine, if you're on the fence about it, it looks like that's the way it's trending, and it's getting faster every day. And if the Buffalo Bills are already saying this in Western New York, that they're going to require their people to have a vaccination, you're probably going to see on the West Coast. If you're seeing it in West, because if you're not familiar, Western New York isn't usually the most progressive place, but I think they took a very great stand and very noble, and I wish other teams did that. I'm so glad the Bills did that, but it's been a week and we've had quiet. So I do have the UCLA tour up. We have hotel, ground transportation, and everything but the tickets. So go and look at that right now, or just pay attention to us, me and Shane, for a little while. But go check out the website if you're waiting. I know a lot of you put down deposits, but I had to drop that because I'm excited, and I know Shane, he has some Southern Cal roots as well. But as you think about this upcoming season, and let's talk about this UCLA game and the trip itself, and what are you most excited about overall?
Overall, well, yeah, like you said, I was fortunate to go to the Rose Bowl back in, what was that, 2018?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and such a classic venue.
Or 17, I think.
Anytime I go to a road game, I always get chicken skin, because I'm just so used to going to Aloha Stadium, and I just gotta add this in. And although Aloha Stadium takes its cracks about such a junk stadium, this and that, but people don't realize Aloha Stadium is actually a good stadium.
Yeah,
it's just the way that the school or the program tries to market the games.
Yeah.
The actual experience itself needs improvement. But as far as the stadium itself, it's an awesome venue. It's big, it's spacious, and like even the Rose Bowl, it's big, but when you walk on the concourse and stuff, it's not that big. It's not like big like Aloha Stadium. But yeah, the UCLA game, it was hot, just like the USC game, exactly.
Yep.
And I always talk to you about that 8-clap cheer, because we were surrounded by the UCLA fans, and they kept doing this super irritating cheer. And
well, we all heard it during the Final Four because UCLA was in it, so you always heard it too. It brought back some
And
painful memories from that day for sure. The score wasn't exactly in our favor.
yeah, and as far as the fans, they weren't like super rowdy. Like I know there was a kind of a poll, or not a poll, but there was a ranking by some website, and it ranked the top 10 craziest college football atmospheres and the bottom 10 college football atmospheres as far as fan wise. And UCLA was on the bottom 10. And when I thought about it, it was like, yeah, the fans weren't like super, like, yeah. Oh.
It's hard because it's so spaced out, though, too, right? The Rose Bowl is huge. Like, nobody plays in that venue. I mean, well, I guess in Michigan or something they play in. But the Rose Bowl is giant. It's like 110,000 people or something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, UCLA, most schools could not fill that. But UCLA definitely just put the dent in it. And then they put up fencing and sometimes to keep people away from certain sections. But I think, we were kind of far away. But I don't know. I mean, you were also rocking. You like to wear the team's colors, right? And tell people about this. But you wear the UH logo, but you wear the other team's colors.
Yeah. Well, that's my main goal. I'm a hat guy. I collect hats. Shout out to Fitted Hawaii 808 all day. But my goal is to always get a UH hat in the opponent's team's colors. So
I love
that way, before the game, before Laulauhead actually comes out of his cave, I always rock my UH hat in opposing team's colors, just to, I don't know, I just like to irritate them or, cause, irk them a little bit because, like how I said, I've been to 6, 7 road games now, and they've all been losses, and not just, well, granted,
so we need to break that.
Game,
that's one streak we definitely need to break for sure.
Man. But I told my wife, like, that day where I'm at a road game when we win, I'm going to irritate a lot of the home fans, so I'm just letting you know beforehand. But, the only close game I've been to was the Huskies game in 2011 when we lost by 8. But other than that, every game it's been like not even close, and it's just so frustrating, man.
Yeah, you went to both Husky games, yeah. So
so we need, like, I know we've mentioned it multiple times, but we need that one big win. We need to beat a UCLA. We need to beat a USC, Arizona, Arizona. We need a big road win. And it's just so hard not getting it.
Yeah.
And it's just, as a UH fan, passionate, we always try to be positive. Yeah? We always try to think the best, but there's times where it's like, it's so frustrating. Like, when are we going to get over that hump? And it's like,
well, this UCLA game, obviously, to play a Pac-12 opponent, regardless of what their record is, regardless of who it is, beating a Pac-12 team on the road would be impressive.
Yes, of course.
But this trip also provides, like we said, for us fans, that experience of being in the Rose Bowl, which is really cool. It's a venue that has been around, has so much history. Obviously, the Rose Bowl game is played there, but it's one of those venues that has like the ivy on the walls, and it's very quintessential vintage LA architecture that definitely takes you on a little time warp. So I think that's kind of that mystique of playing in that building is cool for UCLA because they play all their home games there. Nobody else plays I've heard also that there are only like 16 events a year in the Rose Bowl just because like there's just not much stuff there, right? They don't want to like have too much stuff going on the on the field or whatever because just to maintain a place like that. But like you said, it was hot. The concourses are kind of like there, kind of like the Coliseum, so you kind of get hot. But the tailgating was pretty cool. And last time, well, I was in the parking lot, so I know UH will always have like a little UH sponsored event, and sometimes the Hawaii sports fans will do that a lot. I've even hosted the event before, or had to MC the event when we were at Army. in West Point. But like that is something that is really important. I know that tailgate experience, especially for you, because you're a guy that loves to tailgate and tailgate at the home games. And Aloha Stadium is a place that anybody can find Laulauhead before, right on the in front of the ticket office, on that path leading up.
That walkway.
Is that what you
by ESPN.
And by ESPN,
just listen for the faint Backstreet Boys music going on.
Yeah, so the Backstreet Boys thing is that I was a Backstreat Boys fan. I'm a little bit younger than you, but I was like caught up in the craze because I was like high school already, like but I think it is great that you do a little Backstreet Boys karaoke. And we'll have to like jump in on that sometime. Are you still into boy bands? Are you a fan of any boy bands today? Is my question.
No, I'll never turn my back against Backstreet. Backstreet for life.
So not in sync at all, though. You're not in sync person.
Yeah, I know there's people that'll always say no way, and sync is way better. I give them this. This, I promise you, is probably one of the greatest slow jams of all time. But overall, Backstreet Boys cannot beat Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys, I went to the concert at the Blaisdell one night, and it was amazing. It was one of the best concerts I've been to, and that was them. 2 years ago, 2019, right? They came to Blaisdell. So I saw them one weekend at home, and that was awesome. Like after a game, I guess it was like on a Sunday concert, and they like blew me away. They were so good, and everybody was like singing the call, and I remember because like I liked all their albums, so I'm definitely the Backstreet Boys from the very first album. But with that being said, I do like BTS now actually too. I think I do like some BTS songs, but. Like the Backstreet Boys craze, like that was an interesting time, and in American pop culture, wherein like the 98 Degrees thing, and how that there was so much crossover with sports there even too. But no, that was just a side because every time you bring up Shane or Laulauhead, the people that know you well will bring up the Backstreet Boys thing, right? Because they're like, oh yeah, I just go sing Backstreet Boys with him before, so. That's not gonna start at all. But no, like Shane. First for one thing, are people gonna see you at UCLA? Are we gonna see you there in California in August?
Probably not, because I try to just make it to. Usually, I can only make it to one road game a year, but I'm really trying to get to that Vegas game.
Oh, okay, cool. Yes. So that'll be an important game to go to as well.
Yeah.
But with that being said, your tailgates, my front row, these are all things that we have come to expect at UH football, because just like I sit with my people in the first row. In the B section, and Shane does his thing with his peeps and tailgates. It's pretty legendary because we see these things every game, every year, every season. But all of those things could change next year. So first off the bat, we've talked about the stadium before on the show, and I've talked in private with you. And I mean, I bring up all the time that I did say that it was going to be at Ching Field because we no more money anyways. Like, the Maui thing was never going to happen. Sorry, Maui. Like, I don't want to be rude, but, like, that was never on the table because we no more money. But, no, I'm sure that it was considered. But ultimately, we're going to be on campus. Right now, UH is in the midst of a fundraising campaign to try and get people to donate. So, I mean... For me, I want to know what it looks like first of all, what the vision is, because you're asking for, I think the number has gone up, right? It went from like 5 million, now it's 8.3 or something too, which I don't blame them because they were just making $3 million off, whatever. But what are you excited about? What are you skeptical about? What are you going to be sad about? I don't know. I don't know where to start with this because going into Ching Field means leaving Aloha Stadium, and it also means, starting a new era. And I don't know how prepared we are, even as a fan base or as a program. I mean, as a fan base, I'm kind of secure as where we are because I think we have a strong fan base. But I don't know if this program cultivates their fans like a team should, like a Division I program should. And I also don't think that we don't know what could possibly happen with this stadium on campus, like the good or the bad, because there is a lot of I tend to be optimistic, and I think there's so much that could be done in terms of experience, because that's the thing you brought up too, right? Was like Aloha Stadium, the facility wasn't all that bad. It's actually a really great facility. It's actually a place that people would bucket list to people that watch the Pro Bowl, people that watch Hawaii games, and say like, "Oh, one day I'm going to Hawaii and I want to go to a game at Aloha Stadium." And I think that's worth going to in your life. And I think that Aloha Stadium is one of those venues that captures so much of that sports like folklore of big games and huge crowds and major moments. But now it's all gone, and I don't know. A part of me even thinks we might go back. Honestly, a part of me still feels like just because we're so close to the season right now. But I guess where do you start, Shane? Where do you start in all this madness?
I don't know. Yeah, like how you mentioned how Aloha Stadium, like back in our heyday, that undefeated season, because I sit all the way up in the red, so I rarely walk all the way back down. But my wife, she wanted to go get something to eat, so I walked back down with her during a game in 2007, and the amount of different food stuff and all the things going on, I was like, wow, this is so awesome. It was so good. And then you fast forward back to 2019, where it's all just nothing. Yeah. It's all just beer, burgers, So you could tell it was slowly going away.
Yeah.
And now when we talk about the playing at Ching Field, I have high hopes. There's so much potential there as far as getting students to go to games. It's in town. It's on campus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the thing that worries about me, and I know everybody talks about it, is this is Hawaii.
Yeah.
I mean, they make so many poor judgment. And we all take the rail, for example. The thing is, like, is the rail ever even going to be finished? So I don't even know if it's going to be done on time as far as retrofitting Ching Field, because I don't know if anybody can fill me in, but has anybody even seen beginning of construction in that area?
I mean, I don't even know what stage they're at, because like, are there renderings? Because to be quite honest, if you're saying 10,000 is the, you can just push 10,000 seats. You can just push bleachers in. I mean, I'm assuming we have enough bleachers in Hawaii, or we can bring them from the mainland, like the temporary kind, and just say, okay, call it a day, and then that's like several $1,000s maybe. But at 8-point-something million, that's money you're gonna have to recoup. And at 10,000, that number is not very high anymore. I mean, because, which I'm happy, and I'm gonna assume that the students are gonna come back, for one thing. And if the students do come back, which is great, it'll add to the vibrance of the college atmosphere and the game. But if, say, 4,000 students come, would be a solid number of students, and which is possible. I mean, how many live on campus? 10,000, whatever. So if 4,000 came, that number goes down to 6,000 tickets.
6,000. So exactly, like people are asking me about, because they know I've been a season ticket holder for years now.
Mm-hmm.
So they're asking me, "Oh, you going to the games?" Like, I don't even know. Nobody has reached out. I don't even know how they're gonna give us tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and then I know parking's gonna be a huge issue. Like, the school keeps saying, "No, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay," but even listening to Bobby Curran a couple of days ago, even he said, "Oh, he thinks parking is going to be a nightmare."
I think parking is going to be crazy as it's like for when men's volleyball sold out their last game. Wahine volleyball sold their last. Well, whatever. I went to whatever the last sellouts were. I think men's volleyball, maybe, yeah, and like, yeah, it's hard. I mean, even if you're selling out the Stan Sheriff, it's rough. But I mean, I think you could do auxiliary parking at Midpack or something, or at University High or something, and they could benefit from that. And that's the thing. It's like at Wisconsin and Madison. I always use Madison as an example, but really most college towns. Even though I mean, Madison was cool. It wasn't like it was amazing in Madison, Wisconsin. Like, oh, like people there really think their fandom is like through the roof. But I mean, it's a cool place. I get it. But the thing I love about a place is like Madison is that's the capital of Wisconsin, but it's still really a college town. It's still really everything kind of leads up to the school, and everybody, in the houses around on game days, it's game day. Like you're not like honking your horn at like the band coming on the street. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know that you live in a college town. And sorry, you live in Manoa, which is a great, beautiful town to live in, which my uncle does. You live in a college town still, nonetheless. Like, University of Hawaii is like, the centerpiece. And this is not, I mean, Manoa has very rich history that goes beyond UH for sure. But I'm saying like, if an event happens at UH, obviously, like the Punahou Carnival happens, which is in Manoa, basically. Punahou is basically Manoa, I guess, or whatever it's considered. I mean, you're always going to have Punahou Carnival traffic, and that's really crazy. But, I mean, if you have to deal something with like that for 7 times a year, I'm not, I don't think it's a huge issue as well. Let's go to some. Oh, Sean said we're all sitting together, Hawaii sports fan section. So that'd be great. Yeah, I'm hoping for that. Sean said I thought they were building permanent seating, and that's why I'm thinking, yeah, 8-point-something million. That's permanent. That's like gonna be there forever. But yeah, it's really close because it's April 21st, and the first game is September 3rd. So that's literally 5 months. 4.5 months. 4.5 months, not even 5 months. That's like not a lot of time. How many structures are erected in 4.5 months in Hawaii in a few months? Like not very many. So I don't know, but Shane, what would you imagine it would look like if you were to see a permanent structure if you had to visualize it yourself? What do you think it would look like?
I just think it would just be an extension because you can't really do much with that because on that one side there's the concrete, the concrete bleacher seating or whatever it's called. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess you could put an extension of bleachers on that side, and then oh man, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know how it's gonna look but like you said, I wish they would have at least some kind of conceptual design so that we can get an idea of what to expect. Or, like you said, I don't want to donate plenty money to help your cause. I mean, it's like, what kind of ugly thing is this?
Yeah, and I think, and I also think the campaign for it's desperate. It's always desperate to just ask people for money. And I just think during a pandemic too. Especially given like everyone's situation and given the fact they've already took our season ticket holder money. So how many people are going to be able to even use those tickets even though they've held on to our money from the previous year? I have 2 seats of my own. I mean, my whole group was 8 of us, I guess. But like the ticket prices are probably going to change and the ticket levels are going to change. That's a lot of conceptually. That's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially if you don't know what it looks like, because then you have to make. So I don't know. That's what kind of worries me. But that's one part that worries me. The second part that worries me is the fact that, today it was announced that the stadium, the new Aloha Stadium, was moving on to its next stages, which is, I guess, a good sign. Even though it looks like like Governor Ige isn't like excited to cut checks to anyone right now for this new stadium. But if it's being built, which is good, it still needs to be built. And like you said, in Hawaii, we don't know whether things are going to even be done. So if we stay in that 10,000, because for me, when people said two things arguments that people would make that I had arguments against, and now we have to revisit those. The first one being, is 30,000 is 35,000 enough? And first I was like, I think that might be enough. And then now it's like the number keeps dropping, you know. So for the new facility, it's like, okay, is 10,000 going to be enough, and you know, to keep the Division I requirement of attendance, 15,000 per year for FBS or whatever. So I guess FCS must have a different number, but eventually they're gonna be like, okay, are you really gonna get this built? Are you really gonna? And I can see like in 5-6 years, we're in the big sky and we're not in the Mountain West anymore. We're playing like Weber State and Eastern Washington and the red field. We go from the green field, the blue field, to the red field in Spokane. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of ramifications on the future of this program. Is there anything that you fear as well that could change the culture of the program? Because I know tailgating is a huge thing for you. So, for instance, where do you plan on tailgating, and where do you plan on? I mean, because you can't tailgate in the parking structure. That's not allowed, at least right now. They might change the rule. But if Shane was to go to a game right now and he had to tailgate, I guess where would you think of a place to tailgate around?
I don't know, man. And yeah, like, to me, tailgating is such a big part of the college football experience, or just sport football in general. It's not just the game itself; it's an all-day affair. That's why I tell people it's so fun, because it's just, you meet people, you have fun during the before the game, you go to the game, then after you still hang out, talk stories. So for me, tailgating is a huge part of the experience. And I know, like, they're talking about how we were talking about college sports towns, and they were talking about Alabama the other day, and how people will just park 2 miles away from the game and just walk 2 miles to go to the game.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, oh, would you do that here? I'd be like, oh, hell yeah, I would if I could.
Well, it's also different. Like, that's the thing is, like, in Manoa, though, because that's a good point, but so I was thinking, like, you know, my friends shop on, like, Young Street in McCully or something. Like, I'm thinking, like, you know, it's like we're kind of in a weird section, like in Alabama, where I went to go watch UH play Alabama when Colt Brennan was played our quarterback, and we played them in 2006. I was there, and I parked at some Chinese grad student's apartment, and they like charged me $10 and gave me water. It was hilarious, but I had to walk kind of far too. But that was expected. Like, they're not expecting to, like, at those schools to have parking for everybody. Like, parking, and honestly, that's one thing too, for the rest of our lives, parking will never be something that, because they can't maximize profit right off of the parking. They can't maximize that. But, SoFi had some park, like you talked about earlier, I went to SoFi Stadium and I got to sit in those seats that we're going to have with Hawaii sports fans at the Rams games, right on the visiting team tunnel. So if you are a visiting team fan, like Shane, a fan of the Seahawks, who are going to play in SoFi every year, forever and ever, check us out, because we're going to have those seats available pretty soon. They're in the club. You have access to a 365 exclusive club. You get your own entrance. You have padded seats.
How much seats do you have in that?
So those are four right next to... Like, we're going to be sitting all over the place, and we're going to be probably spacing out unless we'll see how it happens. But those are our main seats. So those are going to be to, like, people who want to buy, or on a tour we're going to kind of, like, upgrade those areas if you want to buy those seats, or if you're a part of the group. So, and then, I'll try and work to get those seats or similar seats for everybody else. But that's just like an experience that I want people to have at the new stadium, is more than, because out of the 75,000 seats in the stadium, which is a big and beautiful stadium, but at the super, super top, like, I don't even know what kind of experience that is. That's even above the Oculus. Like, you're above the big screen when you're up there. Like you're looking down at the big screen. So it seems kind of high, but it's still going to be great seats. I mean, it's an amazing stadium. SoFi is beautiful.
But that was the first time you got to go in, yeah?
Literally the first time I got to go into SoFi Stadium was on Saturday. Yeah.
So were you like?
Yeah, I was blown away by it.
Satisfied?
I was satisfied, but it cost a lot. So but I was of the point where I was like, this is beautiful, but it better be. I was like, I like this, but it better be. But you know, it is the best thing. I mean, it's amazing. NFL headquarters are going to move there. They're starting to build some of the stuff around. So when we think about the UH new stadium situation, it's going to be in the vein of SoFi, right? They want to do a private public partnership, P3, and build mixed-use facilities that can have, you know, whatever, office space, residential, commercial. So that's what they want to do by UH as well, because all those people, they can leverage the debt, I guess, amongst all of these private companies, which, you know, our government doesn't want to keep having to pay for projects on their own, and especially ones that are always over budgeted. So SoFi, as expensive as it is, and as much as, you know, a lot of the season holders have to pay seat licenses to, you know, provide them even more capital to continue construction, they still have these mixed-use facilities. So the NFL is moving into one of these buildings, commercial spaces right outside of SoFi, and that's kind of going to be the centerpiece of the NFL is kind of be SoFi as well, Inglewood, California. So if you've you know, been to Inglewood before, I'm not going to put down Inglewood because a lot of places that have beautiful stadiums, the surrounding area might not keep up with the level of the aesthetic and, you know, the beauty of splendor of that expensive building. But Inglewood has a lot of history there. I mean, the Forum is there, which is one of my favorite venues in the world. And the Clippers are going to build a new Forum there, new building of their own there as well. So that area is starting to come up and coming. So, you know, our government's trying to hoping that Aloha Stadium project will be similar, right? That it'll attract more people to the area and it'll bring a bunch of different stuff. We need, like, clearly, because whenever Shane posts from a Sato family, he's in a 3-block line that wraps around like Nuuanu all the way to like 4th Street, basically. So clearly that would be a great tenant, I think. Hint, hint. I'm about local and the good local places. We just need more of them. And I think this is a good opportunity. Like we talked about this, especially in a new stadium, especially at UH. You can bring in anybody. Like bring in the good stuff that we all want to go to, that we will waste time with, or the stuff on Instagram that's cool. Like work with those people. So I hope that happens. So Candy was saying for the Sugar Bowl, she walked from the convention center to Mercedes-Benz, and a lot of Hawaii fans. So yeah, we walked far for that one too. Sugar Bowl
in the freezing.
Yeah, it was freezing in New Orleans. Oh, it was freaking cold. Yeah. But yeah, and then Hawaii people, you know how we deal with the cold. So we're all complaining about the cold as we're walking in the cold after we got slaughtered by Georgia on national TV. And what seemed like the longest game ever, it was so sad. Like Sean said, it was a long and sad walk back to the hotel. It was very long, very sad. I remember my aunt bought us like the Marriott Hotel, like $25 like buffets. It was like 1 a.m. We're just like sadly eating our scrambled eggs and bacon. I remember with my cousins. And I had paint on my face, and it was like small kind coming off. And I was like, this is a very sad moment. Like everything was so amazing leading up to this game, walking around Bourbon Street, and like, you know, New Orleans is one of my favorite cities. I just love that place. There's so much culture and history there as well. Obviously, it has its darker parts, but you know, everywhere has that. And in Hawaii, we're so we're lucky in Hawaii. We don't really have a lot of that. I mean, in Hawaii, we are pretty safe. I hate to say it, but Oahu might be changing a lot and too rapidly, and a lot of it is because we're growing, and you know, we're not, you know, doing it in a way that's communal. And I think sports is communal. Sports and Aloha Stadium can bring in revenue and benefit everybody, right? It can bring people like you when you were a kid to the stadium, and you know, talk about that. And like I talk about my grandma all the time, and you have a similar story about how your grandma brought you to games as well, right?
Oh yeah. It's not even it's not even my like blood grandma. It was after from my dad's remarried.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my dad's second wife's mom. So she's like my step grandma.
Okay, she's your grandma.
But yeah, she's my grandma. And growing up, she's my best friend. I mean, she took me to the UH games, and that's basically a long story short. That's how I became such a big fan. I mean, it was just me and my grandma catching the express bus from Kahala Mall to the stadium. She
really
taught
cool.
Taught me the only junk thing about the express bus is we would always have to leave before the game was done.
Yeah,
what? We gotta walk back
That's
to
so
the bus,
junk.
get your seat. Yeah, so a lot of times the game would still be in doubt. It's like, oh, we gotta walk back to the bus. Like,
man. Everybody knows that everybody is there for the game. So why wouldn't the bus just leave?
I know. It's like and they wouldn't.
That's so Hawaii. That's so Hawaii.
Yeah, they would just leave. It's like, so that's why we have to make sure we're there before the bus left. Like, these guys.
That is so Hawaii.
Yeah, just that, and pretty much that. And she always took me to. It was just football and basketball.
Nice.
So yeah.
But I mean, it's that generational growth in this program as fans. That's what is our strength, for one thing, too, as fans, because, like, if people know, I didn't go to UH. Fuchsia didn't go to UH. A lot of, our biggest super fans didn't go to UH, but a lot of us mostly just grew up on the island or in the state. And I want to shout out the neighbor islands because we have so many great fans out there as well. But, we all still feel that same connection to the school, even if we don't have a diploma from the school, even if we have a degree. And that's what's really important, I think, is that connection that we feel. And, that's, back to the stadium discussion, again, with it being on campus, and I'm hoping the students come because we need the students there. But at 10,000, we're going to be obviously bringing down, if we have 4,000 kids, maybe it won't be 4,000. Maybe they'll let 1,000 in. Say they let 1,000 kids in, which is still a lot. I doubt it'll be only that many. I think it'll be more than that, but say 1,000, like 9,000 isn't a lot of people, and the people that you eliminate. Okay, and I want to bring this up too because like you brought up the LAFC, and I talk about LAFC every show. Obviously, I love the LAFC so much. And we had our first game, our season opener, and my friend passed away, and it was nice on the Fox Sports World. In the stadium, they all did, on the Fox Sports broadcast, showed that video dedication to my friend as well, Mauricio. He was that much of a legend to our program, but only a quarter of the stadium people could get in, right? And we're all season ticket holders, basically. Our first game was in 2018. I've been a ticket holder since 2016. A lot of us put down money before. I didn't even know anything. I'm just a Facebook ad away. That's all I was put down $50. I had no friends. I just put down $50 and hoping to have one friend. And if you saw, especially the LAFC show I did dedicated to my friend who passed away of COVID, I have like 1,000 friends. Like I almost have too many friends now from LAFC now. But it's like, that's how amazing that fan experience is for me. And but there are some people that were pretty habut, right? Like they got the notice that they were not selected. And people with longer tenure than me, because I put down my payment in like late 2016. That's pretty early, considering the first season was in 2018. It was only like the crazies who were pretty dedicated that put money down before, and I still wasn't in the top. So I was like, "Jang," but it is what it is. But now
is it lottery?
It's lottery, I guess. It's lottery, but going by tenure. Supposed to go by tenure too.
Yeah.
But I guess some people later. But the people that don't get it or are going to be, upset by it, they're the ones that could get offended by anything as well. And we'll stop going to games, or not, it's just another excuse to not go because a lot of people, and not for LAFC as much, because LAFC is such a great experience that they provide for fans that, people want to go.
That drum thing.
Yeah.
Is that something that was cool? That's something they always do, that drum dance thing. Or was that?
Yeah, we do that every game. We all have to know the cheers too. We have like dozens and dozens of cheers. Like and we sing the whole game. We don't stop. Like we don't sit down. Our seats are pulled up. Our seats are bolted up, so we cannot bring the seats down. Actually,
So it's you always
you have to
stand.
stand. You have to stand the whole game. You have no choice. Yeah, you have no choice. And actually, they made us sign a contract when I bought my season tickets that I would abide by all the rules, which means standing. But not everybody cheers. But us, the real hardcore ones, we cheer, right? And we, that's why I love my group so much too, because not only are we engaged in the game, but we have to rehearse things. We have to like be in sync. We went to Mexico. They wouldn't let us bring our drums in there, which was crazy. So people had to use cups, and we were still doing our chants. But we do chants in Spanish. We do chants in English. We have Korean chants even, because we have a Korean group and we have Korean players too. A Korean player now, or a single Korean player. But like we have players from all over the world. But back to my original point, those people who didn't get picked for the game are still mad about it on Facebook. Of course, I was upset about it the first game. I still went. I still got in because there was no way I'm missing that game. And shout out to Miguel and Gordo over here, who I got to sit next to that whole game, and who yells. A lot of guys stand on the metal part too, the bar. Like we're already standing, and in theory, when you think about it, every level someone is on the same level of someone standing on. So if you're standing on something, you're on the same level of somebody who is literally just not standing. Like that's why I don't understand. Like the whole point is that it's called safe standing, but it's totally unsafe. But I love everybody on there, but it's just hilarious because then when people block my view, I'm very upset because I have to watch the whole game too. I'm not just chanting. Like I'm watching the game. Like I'm like getting upset, but we can't. But the good thing about us cheering too is like if somebody scores a goal, we keep cheering. Like for the other team, we don't stop. Like we get deflated maybe, but we keep going. Like the drums don't stop. Like everything keeps going. We're the best though. I mean, we are the best in the world. Probably no, maybe not in the world, but in the MLS for sure, we are the best. So, and that is crazy that people come together. Who really didn't know each other that much, and that's why a lot of people in the first season were like, "Oh, are you guys getting paid to go to the games?" Like, people were like commenting on my post like Twitter, like, "Oh, how much are they paying you?" Like, because it is crazy. A lot of us are crazy, but it's fun. Like, we just like going to UH road games. For me, it was like, "Oh, I have a whole nother team to go to a road game for." But simple things can offend people, like not getting into games. Was I upset? Of course I was, but I found a way in anyways. But there are people that are like, "Oh, I never get picked." Like they're like, "No, like I'm never going back to a game ever again." Like some people are like that and ridiculous. But if UH tells 10,000 people, who knows? 5,000, at least 5,000 people with the current numbers. Oh, sorry, you can't fit into the new stadium.
Oh, bro, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yes, exactly. Can you imagine that happening? No, because people would be pissed. People would say like, "Okay, I guess that means I'm never going back to a game because you don't want my season ticket money. Then no need go, I guess, yeah." And that will definitely happen. And when that does happen, the few people who are left behind are the season ticket holders, because even the people that are picked, just because if they're picked on tenure, which is scary as well, because if you look at some of the tenure of the people in our stadium, we definitely ain't going to get picked because some of those people have been like when my grandparents originally got their tickets. So can you imagine the stadium just full of quote-unquote Simon sippers? And I use that in a very not in a pejorative sense, but because it has been used, because we'll just say people who are quiet during the games are not even paying attention, but that the stadium is at risk of that as well, being filled with people who are not adding to the atmosphere, but by virtue of the fact that they've had season tickets for so long, they get to be in the stadium. So I don't know. Is that something you've? Sorry, I think about all these things, but I'm like, I think it could like long-term ramifications on the team have effect.
That's gonna be bad. Like you said, that's gonna turn away a lot of fans, man. They're already losing, dedicated fans already. The fan base is already dwindling, and if you tell other still guys that are still hanging on, "Oh, sorry, you didn't make the cut to come into the games this year." What the heck? So
No, I know
know,
that email. So tonight. So this is still being discussed, but I got the email that I was getting in, and then I got an email that I was not getting in. So I think the reason is because through my group, what we're trying to do for the people that sit in the north end, or our section, our standing room section. Obviously, the rest of the stadium has seats. Like, not everybody's doing that. Just our section. I mean, our section is, you have to get a ticket to be in our section. We have our own bar. Like, we have our own area and stuff too. Like, it's just for us. And we have our own concourse where you can stand and drink your beer and put it on a bar as well and stand up on the bar. Of course, you should be cheering the whole game, because if you're in the north end, you should be cheering the whole game, because that's the whole point. And who doesn't want to cheer? And when you're there, it's only... It's 90 minutes sounds long, but it's really like, it's in soccer, it's like an actual 90 minutes plus stoppage time. So you know exactly how the game's going on.
Since we're on this topic of soccer, I don't know, because I'm not a big soccer fan, but I know in the news recently they were talking about Chelsea leaving the Super Group or something. Does that have an effect on this LAFC?
Well, so MLS, so in the world of soccer, and a lot of us know, and I'm not a huge soccer aficionado, but I've done a lot of my own research, and I'm still learning, but when MLS started, I remember being in high school when MLS started, and I was like, oh, MLS, they're going to try and be like the best, but that's because I had a very limited worldview, because those powers that like Chelsea and these teams, they play in like the English Premier League. And they're talking about other leagues like La Liga, which is like the Spanish league, or the Serie A, which is like the Italian. So you have not just the NBA, but imagine Canadian Basketball Association, Mexican Basketball Association. You know what I mean? So imagine we had that. And like in basketball, it's a no-doubter, right? The NBA is the best. We already know this. Like no other federation can come close to the NBA. And in my opinion, in any sport, NBA is so good, it's so hard to crack. But imagine if like the Canadian Basketball Association had like their two best teams were about as good as the top 5 teams, were about as good as the top whatever in Mexico, and they also had a lot of money. So it goes back to the money thing. It's like the richest teams are saying, let's just make our own league, and then we can just play each other and make a lot of money. So it's like the SEC, it's like the best teams in the SEC, and that's the thing, it's not even the best, it's just the richest teams. So the richest teams are going to and they're all American owners, apparently, or most of them are American owners. And that's a very American thing, too. It's like, how can we squeeze the most profits out of this? They're like, you know, and that's just like saying, if the SEC was like, dang it, like, we don't want to play, you know, why is Alabama, if they were like, why are we playing Vanderbilt? And why are we playing, like, you know, the junkier, you know, SEC teams? Like, why don't we replace them with Florida State or something? And
schools that have more money, right?
Yeah. So, and in soccer, they also have this thing called the Champions League, which is not really a league. It's more of a tournament that brings the best clubs from the other leagues and puts them in a tournament, which is a cool thing, right? Like, people always said, like, how is the baseball calling it the World Series when it's literally only American teams? But we're like, the World Series, like, it's only America. But, you know, not to say, I don't think any Japanese baseball team is going to say, like, they deserve to be in the World Series. Like, I don't think that would ever happen. But at the same time, in soccer, a lot of other leagues have powerful clubs wherein they have the, you know, can actually argue to make something like this happen. The closest thing I think, and I don't see too many people making this similarity, but the closest I see is to colleges. It's like SEC having a lot of, you know, their best schools, and then, or their most richest schools, and the ACC, their richest schools, and the Big Ten, like, them getting together, and then their fans saying, no, like, we want to keep it, because that would also take them out of their natural rivalries. Also in soccer, in English Premier League and all these other leagues, they have something called relegation, where if you don't fit, if your league has 20 teams in it, and you don't finish in the top 10, you go down. Like, I'm just saying, top 10 could be top 16, I don't know.
So
but you literally get demoted, and you have to play the next season against the junkier teams, and you don't get to play for the championship or for that bigger championship. You play for I don't even know if the relegated team ever gets a chance to go. So, like, it's like being JV. It's like, you know, an OIA always going from D1, now you're D2, now you're D1, now you're D2. And, like, Kalani or like the smaller schools, how they're always jumping around because like, you know, so this goes simply by that relegation and the American owners who own these bigger, richer teams, they don't want to. They want to create a league that has no relegation. They want to create a league where they always have a great game every week that people tune into, and of course, people are going to watch it. That's the thing. That's why, as much as I complain about money in sports, and there's too much money in sports not going to the right people, at least college athletes, and we're paying a lot of money to watch sports. You know, as long as people are being compensated, that's like the most important thing. But you know, sometimes, you know, we feed into it ourselves, and we feed into that monster ourselves. So these owners are just chasing that dollar. But it's very much more traditional in those countries in Europe. It's not like America. It's not like when we start a franchise, like, oh, the NFL awards Jacksonville with a franchise. It's not like that. It's like in Europe, it's like, where in 1757 did this first person kick the ball and start a team? It's like every club has a story where they're like, and then they were all iron workers, and then they would play football after the game, and then they would play footy and on the pitch, and now they're in Berkshire, and now they're on the north of the English Scotland. Like they're like very European, like they're so tied to that school. Like it's almost like a gang too. Like that's why the fans in soccer can be kind of extreme because, and even in the MLS you have that. But that's the fan experience. That's the difference of having a supporter group and people that chant the whole games. And in those countries, soccer, they all have those things. They all have supporter groups and they all have chant. So, you know, like a lot of people, they go, that's, you know, like us, you're a Seahawks fan, you know, I'm a Chiefs fan. And it's like, you want to make that, that mecca, especially if you're not from there, right? You know, like when you talked about going to Seattle, and for me, I've been a Chiefs fan since 1989, and I literally, it was my first time in 2021 going to Chiefs game at Arrowhead. I've always only gone to road games because, like, for me, Kansas City was never, it's always like hard to get there. And actually getting there, it took a lot. And going from Hawaii to Kansas City is so hard. But, you know, I finally got there, and the thing was, it was like finally making that mecca, and you feel that even more connection to your team. And people do that from America. They go to England, and they go to like Manchester United or like Chelsea and Liverpool, and they go to these stadiums and they make their mecca to Europe, or they go to Germany and they go to Bundesliga teams. Like you have all these leagues in Europe and all these amazing stadiums, and they all have all these stories. And that's the cool thing too. Like America, we're like, okay, find a billionaire. He buys team. He hires coach. Coach gets, like, that's how we do it in America. It's like, this is a business, and we buy into it. I mean, we love it ourselves. But thank you, Gordo, for watching. Have fun at the golf range. So I got my boy from LAFC watching from the golf range. But, you know, like, I think that tradition in America, they can teach us a lot in American sports. And MLS, being that soccer is a very worldwide, not just totally Western, but European influence, but also, you know, South American influence sport. You have a lot of their traditions influenced into MLS. But ultimately, the MLS is an American league with American franchises. And I just watching this past week, David Beckham, he now is the owner of the Miami team. And what they said in the before the Miami versus LA Galaxy, boo Galaxy, because LAFC, they are rivals, Galaxy. Sorry, boo Galaxy. But it was apparently in his contract when he played for Galaxy, David Beckham, right? He came from Europe and then came to America and brought his Spice Girl with him, and he played on the LA Galaxy, right? And they told him that he could have a franchise in the future if he wanted one. So that's why he exercised his right, like 15 years later. He was like, yeah, I want one now. Actually, they came to Hawaii. Beckham came to Hawaii with Landon Donovan. They played in Hawaii in a soccer tournament, the LA Galaxy. Houston Dynamo was in there too, Brian Ching. But they're not on that same level, MLS, as those major European leagues. They're like kind of even below the Mexican league a little bit. But, I mean, we're talking people that have been playing soccer. Like, that's their main sport. That's like their only sport. I think in the U.S., if we devoted more of our, like, secondary or third tier athletes. I mean, I put myself. I don't think I put myself in the first tier where like I'm an NBA player. I think I'm a pretty good athlete. Like I'll just put it out there, but like it's amazing how crazy it is to play in the NBA, like or the NFL. Like you have to be ridiculous. You have to be on a different level, right? And you have to be also naturally kind of gifted and also have height. But soccer, these guys are like all shapes and sizes. These guys are all athletic, and I hate to, clown some of my own players on our own team, but some of those guys, I'm like, bro, you are not an athlete. Like, I'm towering over you, I'm bigger than you, but these guys are amazingly skilled soccer players. And sometimes that's all it takes is being good at your sport, being really skilled. And in America, we don't get enough people to acquire that skill. We're just like, our parents put us in like baseball, football, basketball. Like, I think if we did start, and that starts with also them opening the game, soccer federation. Look how terrible America might not qualify for another World Cup. Like, how terrible. They didn't even qualify the Olympics again. U.S. didn't even get into the Olympics for soccer. I mean, like, that's what I mean. Like, we have a lot of athletes, but if more stayed home or more decided to be like, okay, I don't think I'm going to play Division I football. Maybe I'll play D1 soccer, and maybe I'll work my way to Europe, or I'll play club soccer. We'd have that. So, and all in all, I'd say I wish I played soccer, but then I would get hurt anyway, so then it wouldn't matter. So, I always get hurt, so it wouldn't matter. I'm Mr. Glass. That's what my coach called me in college, Mr. Glass, because I was always.
Right, so the
so soccer, I would have got hurt too.
So the U.S. soccer team, isn't it like the U.S. basketball team where they take all the best players and put them on? No, it's not.
Well, apparently for the Olympics, you have to be under 21, I guess.
Oh, so it's not like...
America didn't send its best under 21s, but they still could have. They actually had them on the bench in a losing effort in another game, like with their A team, like the World Cup team. Because the World Cup team is not the Olympic team, right? It's like different teams. They're going to have some of the same players. But the World Cup, America barely qualifies for that anymore. So, I mean, that's the thing about MLS is, like, I think they had hoped that it would promote the growth of soccer in America. And it has, but I think it did really for us, it did something more. It forced, like, fans to be introduced to the sport. And I think that's going to be the next level of Americanization of MLS. Will be buying the best players. So on our team, on LAFC, we have a guy named Carlos Vela, who was he plays for the Mexican national team. He's one of their best players in Mexico. So he was 28 when he came to us 4 years ago. So he was like kind of prime-ish, or he might have been a little bit. So he was playing in Europe. So it was like a big get for MLS to get him to come here to America to play. But right now, LA Galaxy, they have Chicharito, who is like the other Mexican player. He's playing on their team, not MLS. So slowly, the MLS doesn't want to just keep getting. They're either getting the newbies who nobody knows about, and then you sell them. So that's another thing. You can invest in a South American player, and they do well, and then you sell them like they are property, and you make money off of them to a European club. So you can do, or you can loan them out. Soccer is really weird. Soccer is very strange. Like, you can loan them out to another team during your own season. And you can also... The thing that I hate about soccer the most, I will say, is what happened to us last year, is that there's this thing that, there's World Cup qualifying and all kinds of international games. They happen the same time as your season. So if you're playing in your own regular season game, some people don't even play on our team. They go to their national team and they sit on the bench there, like what happened with two of our strikers went to play on the Uruguayan team, didn't even get on the bench, sat on the bench, didn't even get in the game, and then got COVID and got COVID trades. So they couldn't even play in our playoff game. So we lost during the playoffs. They're over in wherever playing for their country. No, that would never happen in America. Like, nobody would leave, the NFL, go play in the exhibition NFL, or go play for Team America NFL, football. But Sorry, I know we're just talking our ears off all night because we're gonna have Shane back again. We have a lot to talk about. I know that the stadium is gonna be on everybody's mind. I know that getting into the game will be on everybody's mind. I mean, are you what are you and like you said, you're kind of scared about not getting in. That's the thing too. We don't know what's up in the air. But what are your feelings, at least maybe outside the rest of the UH football? I know Coach Graham made a lot of changes. We didn't really get a chance to talk about that. Maybe we'll save that for next time. But he hired a new offensive coordinator, which happens to also be his son. So that is also something that Hawaii is pretty good at, nepotism. But at the same time, like we'll give Coach the benefit of the doubt because it's his program and he can run it how he wants to. Is it strange to hire a son? Yes, it is strange to hire a son to be offensive coordinator. It definitely is, especially at the Division I level. But our program is not a normal program too. So, it's going to be on Coach to win. But what were your initial thoughts about that one?
It's with how the 2020 went with the football program and how we've got to see our football team now play 8 games, but it's still so hard to predict what's going to happen now that we have, Bo as our offensive coordinator. How you think he's going to do it? I can't even answer that question because I don't even know what was. So last season,
we don't even know what we were. I agree with you. We don't even know what we ran last year. I wouldn't even be able to name it. I wouldn't be able to name it. No.
So it's so hard, and it's. Because we still have. Like Coach said, we're fortunate to be one of the only teams to not be affected by COVID last season. Fortunately, we had a 10-week strength and conditioning program that never got affected. And only recently we had that little outbreak. And fortunately, we're back on the field practicing again. But man, it's just still so many unknowns that I wouldn't even be able to tell you what to expect. I always, as a fan, and you and me, I always go into the season excited, and I always say, "Hey, we're gonna be undefeated." But deep down, I know that's close to impossible. But
no, I mean you never know. You never know.
Yeah, I'm excited to just see. Everybody's excited to see the return of Calvin Turner Jr. I just hope Cordero can. If Cordero can get those deep passes, his accuracy on those deep passes, that kid's gonna be unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I have our defense is looking good with Lewis Sal, and so we all got high hopes.
Yeah.
But it's just perform on that field, man. Just bring back that win against UCLA, and we can all just go from there.
Let's start there with the UCLA. Hopefully we get a win there. Go to hisportsfans.com right now. We got our tour up. We're going to do the UH game, but we're also going to do the Dodgers versus the Rockies. We're going to sit in the home run seats. That's the plan right now at Dodger Stadium. Historic Chavez Ravine. We're also going to do the Angels versus Yankees and hopefully do a sweep there. The Angels are my team. And hopefully we'll be in my seats or in our Hawaii sports fan seats at SoFi for a game, hopefully. But the NFL schedule is not going to be released until May 12th, so we won't know until then.
12th,
But for Laulauhead, we're definitely going to have you back on the show again very soon because we got a lot to talk about. But mahalo for joining us and mahalo for listening or watching.
Peace.
Check us out.
Go Bulls.
Talk to you guys later. Aloha.